A little side tangent here before we officially get into the video. I am keeping my expectations low for season 2. If you ask me, I was not infatuated whatsoever with season 1, and therefore I'm going to proceed accordingly and keep my expectations low for season 2. The reason why I say that is because what they did, the changes they've made, I was not a fan of them whatsoever, especially with episode 3. And I feel on top of that, we didn't get that much time between, Joel and Ellie, right? Their relationship is not convincing to me whatsoever. So when it came to that scene, right, I didn't really feel anything whatsoever. But to be frank, I am curious to see whether Craig Mazin's changes to season 2 are a bit more thoughtful than season 1. Going halfway into episode 3, and I gotta say, this was one of the better episodes. This may not be one-to-one to the game, but I feel like there's some aspects within this episode that are far superior than the game itself. I really have nothing to complain about this episode except for the 3-month time jump. But then again, you might say, without the 3-month time jump, we wouldn't have the town hall scene or those 2 Gale scenes, which I'm gonna be honest, I have a tribe with. I'm gonna get into it later. So the purpose of the town hall scene is to show how the events of episode 2 has affected Jackson, right? And I have no problem with this scene. It adds more lore to The Last of Us. It gives the story a bit more depth because, as you know, in The Last of Us Part 2, we get Jackson, but we don't really get into Jackson as an entirety, as a village or a town, right? So I'm glad the series is adding these extra scenes so we get a bit more depth. However, what I don't like about this scene is Ellie's speech. Seth, he goes up and gives this glorious speech explaining, not even glorious, just a straight up brutally honest speech saying, hey, these guys came into our town, they killed one of our people, now it's time for us to go back out and kill these dudes. And I really like this speech coming from Seth, but I'm wondering, why isn't Ellie saying this? Ellie should be the one giving this speech, but instead, Ellie wants to sit up and give a PowerPoint explanation saying, why should we go kill Joe? We should kill Joe. Don't do it for me. Do it for us. Like, no. Come on, Ellie. Like, there's no way Game Ellie would ever say this. Game Ellie would not be giving a speech like this. Game Ellie would be giving a Seth speech, not a PowerPoint explanation. Also, to add on that, let's talk about Gale. What is the purpose of Gale? I really feel as though Gale is going to serve a higher purpose in this series. I don't know what. Like, is Craig Mazin trying to tell me something? Is Neil Druckmann trying to tell me something? What does Gale represent in this series? Like, is she going to be the reason why Ellie in the show, why she ends up going to Santa Barbara trying to find Abby? Is that what is this leading to? What is her purpose within the story? I'm curious to see what her role is in the future of the series. So we get that scene with the Seraphites, and I have nothing really to complain about this scene. I feel as though this scene humanizes the Seraphites a bit more, and we're ready in episode 3. We haven't even gotten to Yara and Lev yet. So, good points for Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann for adding that scene, except for the fact that they should have put that scene in the beginning of the episode. It would have been a nice cold start, and it would have fit well towards the ending of the episode when Ellie and Dina finally get to Seattle, right? They kind of just fit that scene in the beginning. No, they kind of just put that scene right in the middle of the episode, and then we get that scene with Abby and Dina towards the end. I feel as though it would have been far superior to put it in the beginning.
Mr. Future, what would you rate The Last of Us Episode 3?
Well, to be frank, guys, I'm gonna have to give this episode 6.5, maybe 7 out of 10. I don't know. I really enjoyed this episode. I have really nothing to complain about it. I think it was better than episode 1 and 2. Now, I already know what you're about to say. Oh, we got the fireball. We got the horde scene with Tommy. That's glitz and glamour, right? From an enjoyment standpoint, I enjoyed this episode better than episode 2. And now we transition into episode 4. And guys, I have a lot of things to say about this episode. I'm a little bit iffy halfway, but if you want to know my rating for this episode, keep watching, because there's going to be a lot going on. So we start off with our first scene with Isaac, and if you guys don't know, the actor for Isaac is the same voice actor for the game. So I'm kind of glad they managed to bring him along for this series. But anyway, already loving the characterization they're doing with Isaac here. I mean, you get some of that from reading some of the notes in the game, but that's all you really get. The characterization compared to the game versus what we got here so far, already vastly superior. Now it's time to get into the bad aspects of this episode, and there are many. As expected, they removed most of the content from day one, which is a bit understandable because, as you know, if you played the game, day one has some side missions that you can play, and you get a little bit more lore, a little bit more content as you try to meet your goal and try to find some gas. So it's kind of understandable why they would remove it from the show's perspective, right? But they remove the school scene, and on top of that, they remove the hotel scene with Tommy. First of all, a little side tangent, guys. Where is Tommy? Where's Tommy? Am I bugging? Am I tripping out? They don't mention Tommy not even once. We don't get the scene where Tommy goes out on his own to Seattle trying to deal with this situation himself. No, we don't get that at all. So as far as I know from the show, Tommy's still in Jackson. Like, if they would have had the scene in episode 3 where they're discussing whether to head to Seattle and Tommy isn't there, then I'll be like, okay, so Tommy must have did to Seattle. But we don't get that. So I don't know how they're gonna insert Tommy at all. I'm not sure how they're gonna do it, but we'll see what Neil Druckmann, Craig Mazin cook up, because as far as we know from the game, from us gamers, we don't even know where Tommy is in the show. Where is Tommy? We have no idea where he is. So we have the TV station sequence, and actually before we get into that, I know some of you are complaining that there's barely any action in the series, right? But this is part 2, and I know you're expecting all this glitz and glamour with Infected and the Wolf and the Seraphites, but it's a little hard to expect any action when Ellie and Dina are midgets. How do you expect Ellie and Dina to confront dudes with M4s, fully automatic weapons, when they're 5'4" with a little pistol? Remember, guys, they left their hunting rifle with Shimmer. Shimmer's basically dead. Shimmer is basically dead. They left Shimmer out in the fucking rain, in the cold, with all their stuff. So I'm gonna assume Shimmer's dead, right? As in the game. And the game is blunt, like, yeah, Shimmer's dead. But in the show, I don't know what happened to Shimmer. Maybe some Seraphite found him, but yeah, Shimmer's gone, right? But how do you expect to have all these action sequences when Ellie and Dina are like 5'4", right? You saw in episode 1 how Ellie was barely the dude was holding back. He was holding his punches, right? The dude was and this is a grown ass dude versus Ellie, who's like, I mean, Bella Ramsey, who's like 5'4", right? So as for the TV station sequence, you know, I can understand why they would want to go through it stealthily versus confronting dudes with M4s directly. So I have no problem with that scene so far, which is why I would have wanted to have the school scene, the school sequence, so we can see them in action against the wolves. But it seems like Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin, they're saving that for Hillcrest or Land Hill. I don't know why they changed the name, but yeah. So we transitioned into the subway sequence, and I gotta say, guys, I got some problems with this whole sequence, right? So after getting chased by the wolves, Ellie and Dina find themselves in an abandoned subway station. Why isn't the other wolves infected? Why aren't they coughing? Because as far as I know, in the Last of Us universe, enclosed space plus infected equals a recipe for spores. Why aren't there any spores? Okay. And on top of that, once the wolf soldiers come in looking for Ellie and Dina, I was expecting Ellie and Dina, after recognizing that, hey, there's infected here, there's clickers here, so why don't we be a strategist and use the clickers to lure them to the wolves so we can get out of here? But no, the wolves get spotted anyway from the roots. The roots sense the wolves, and then like, okay, we gotta go after them. That's how they get caught. Not Ellie and Dina strategizing. No, they end up getting caught anyway. So after that, there's a whole horde coming. You know, little side tangent. So apparently, the only way for infected to really feel threatening is in a horde sense. Anything other than that, man, our characters can take care of it. Apparently, in the show universe, if it's not a horde, don't send it. So after the horde comes, Ellie and Dina, they try to make their escape. So the thing I don't understand about the escape is that, okay, so they hop on top of the train, then they hop into the train, and then they hop out and then work their escape. Which, you know, it kind of feels weird how they did it, right? It kind of makes them seem a bit dumb, which I do think they're a bit dumb in the show. But then we get to the gate. Ellie gets bitten right in front of Dina, and Dina is tripping balls. But before we get to the theater, where's the bloater? Where's the bloater? The whole subway sequence or scene in the game, right? It's memorable because we get introduced to the bloater. Where is the bloater? But anywho, another thing that's probably going to be added later towards the end of the season. But yeah, so Ellie, she gets bitten in front of Dina. Dina's tripping balls. She's like, yo, Ellie, I'm going to have to do you bad right here. But Ellie's like, no, I can't get infected. I did like how they did the revelation with Ellie being immune, right? I did like that. I feel like it was more engaging here than the game. But as for the Dina pregnancy scene where she's revealed, where Dina reveals that she's pregnant.
You're fucking kidding. How long have you known? Weeks ago, a few weeks. We could have still turned back. I didn't want to be a burden. Well, you're a burden now, aren't you? Holy shit. I'm gonna be a dad.
Yo, this scene, I don't know what to say about this scene. First off, after Ellie admits and Dina reveals that she's pregnant. They just fought. I just don't get it. It just feels so abrupt. Like, why was this scene necessary? Like, I just don't understand. But moving on from that part, I don't understand because Ellie should be pissed. Ellie should be pissed off. Like, damn, Dina, like, you didn't peep that you were pregnant way before we started this journey getting into Seattle, like in the game. But Ellie in the show, she's like, oh my god, we're gonna have a baby. Like, what? This is what I mean. This is what I mean, guys. This is what I mean when I say game Ellie versus show Ellie is two completely different Ellies. Two completely different. Yay, we're gonna have a baby!
Mr. Future, why would you rate
Trash! I didn't like this episode at all, except for that Isaac scene. Honestly, guys, those two Isaac scenes are the only reason why I don't give this episode like a fucking like 3 out of 10, right? So if we're gonna be fair here, I'm gonna have to give this. Honestly, I think this might be worse than what episode 1. I'd rather see Joel crying like a bitch than watch this episode once again. So in that case, I'm gonna have to give this episode a 5. No, I'm just gonna give it a 5. 5 out of 10. I'm gonna give this episode a 5 out of 10, in my honest opinion. Sorry, show only people, but the game did it way better. Not the Isaac part, but the entirety of day 1 as a whole sequence did it far better. But anyways, if you guys enjoyed this video, please feel free to like and subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to get this channel up to 500 subscribers this year. So if you like and subscribe, get some engagement from me, then we can get further into our goal. So yeah, I'm Alex Future, and peace out.
Yeah.